Welcome back to Slaying the Craft. I'm Sabrina. Nope. Welcome back to Slaying the Craft, the show where we go inside the mind of a thriller writer. I'm Sabrina, your host. I am an author, book coach, and most of all, a fanatic of the genre. My guest today is so amazing. I'm so excited to be talking with her. Hannah Mary McKinnon was born in the UK. She grew up in Switzerland, moved to Canada in 2010, so she's very worldly. After a successful career in recruitment, she quit the corporate world in favor of writing, which I have also now done too, which I appreciate that. While her debut, Time After Time, was a rom-com, she transitioned to the dark side thereafter. Her best-selling suspense and thriller novels include Never Coming Home, The Revenge List, and Only One Survives. She has also written the holiday romantic comedies, The Christmas Wager and The Christmas Countdown, under the pseudonym Holly Cassidy. Her 8th thriller, A Killer Motive, will publish in September of this year. And I'm so excited to talk about this book. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell me about A Killer Motive. What's it about? And because I was reading the synopsis again, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
So A Killer Motive is a thriller. It's about Stella, who takes her 17, almost 18-year-old brother Max to a beach party. He's actually been grounded. He's not supposed to be going out, but Stella and her boyfriend Jeff, they bust Max out of the house and sneak him off to this party, and he vanishes. Max just disappears. He's just gone. 6 years later, Stella is, of course, completely riddled with guilt still. It's destroyed the family. There's never been any sign of Max. And she now runs a podcast called A Killer Motive, which digs into different cold cases. And she's on the radio promoting A Killer Motive because they're in dire need of some money and sponsoring, or because funds have dried up. And a caller asks why she has never done a cold case episode, or why she isn't looking for her brother. So this causes all kinds of emotions. She's, internally thrown into absolute turmoil because she has looked for him. She's done everything she can possibly think of. And she says very calmly, if she had just one clue about the whereabouts of her brother, just one, the tiniest clue, the tiniest piece of information, she would find him and she would bring him home and she would bring whoever hurt him to justice. Yeah. What she doesn't know is that somebody is listening. And then the emails arrive, emails inviting her to play a game, and that if she wins the game, she might just get information about what happened to Max that night. And then bad stuff happens.
That sounds, oh my gosh. When you were saying that, I was like, ooh, so we've got like a jigsaw kind of mastermind going on here with like, do you want to play a game? But yeah, that sounds amazing. Also, I really, really like that you're doing a brother and sister sibling story. I'm a big fan of those. I feel like I don't see them enough. And then, excellent. Yeah. And then also the, I'm an older sister to a younger brother, and I could 100% see being like, come on, we're going to take you out. Like, we'll break you out. It's fine. Like, I got you. It would be cool.
And what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst did happen. Yeah, exactly. Oh exactly. Oh yeah. That's exactly the emotions I was going for. Excellent.
So where did this idea stem from?
It's a funny one because I remember having the idea before I wrote my last thriller, Only One Survives. I'd just written this little, I had a few ideas, and it was somebody that had gone missing. I think it was a brother, maybe it was a sister or a friend, I can't remember, but somebody went missing. That's how the ideas are, right? Somebody goes missing, somebody feels really guilty, and somebody knows what happened and starts playing with this person who feels responsible and guilty. And it was very, very vague. It sounds very vague, and it really was. And at the time, it wasn't a podcast. She wasn't a podcast host. She had a subscription box murder mystery game where every so often you'd get clues.
Oh my gosh, that is so brilliant.
Well,
that's another book, but that's super cool.
Maybe it felt a little bit convoluted, and subscription boxes would would that work? Would that, would that translate well into fiction, what I was trying to do? And it was actually my agent who said, could you not make her a true crime podcaster? Because everyone knows what that is. I thought, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I can. So it was this amalgamation of this idea, but certainly the tiny little nugget that would not let me go was someone goes missing and somebody feels so guilty and it has destroyed a family. And are they alive? Are they dead? And a little bit
That's
Silence
it.
of the Lambsy, kind of feel. That was what
I
I was
have a
going
feel
for.
I haven't read this yet, but just from even the synopsis, I felt like this seems a little bit of a darker tone. And
Yes,
would you say, okay, that's, I
yes.
mean, awesome, because I am really excited about that. Well, what excites you about this story?
Well, I can't say too much about what really excited me because I'll give a whole ton of stuff away, which I don't want
Fair.
to do. It's mainly written from Stella's perspective, so you get her journey. It starts off with the night that Max goes missing, and then we fast forward 6 years. So it's also linear. There are no time jumps,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
as there were in Say Only One Survives, or a couple of my other ones. But there are very short chapters from the villain's point of view. They're
Oh, that's
very,
fun.
very short, and like a page, and they gave me the creeps because
Really?
because the first one starts off with something along the lines of Stella, 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 and it's just that, it's just really because he's basically talking to her, not really,
Yeah.
but
Right,
thinking
right.
about her and talking about her, and saying, things like, I want to see how far I can push you. I want to see how far I can take you before you break. I want to have you hanging off the precipice of fear, and I'll pull you back just a little bit to give you some respite, and then I'll let you dangle over that precipice again, and we'll do it again and again and again. And I creeped myself out as I wrote those. Seriously, I did, really. So the villain interests me. Stella's got a
Yeah.
lot of baggage, with the guilt about her brother, but also some lies that she's telling her husband, um, for very valid reasons and hopefully relatable and understandable reasons. But it was this question of how far would you go, and what would you do, that really grabbed me, and having
Yeah.
these other chapters, and developing the villain, why they're doing this, what is really going on. I found quite fascinating, because that's always what fascinates me in these stories. It's not what knife did they use, or what gun did they use, or whatever, guns are
Oh,
guns
yeah.
or not, whatever. That's not what interests me personally. It's the why. It's the psychology behind it. It's why do people do these things, and what happens when you put ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances and under immense pressure, and then turn it up another few notches. What would they do?
Yeah.
Where will they end
Do
up?
you write first person or third?
First,
You're
first.
writing first.
Yeah, I
First.
think all of my
So
books were first person, except for my very first one, which was third person.
how does that help you with like getting into, I mean, you're basically saying in the mindset, do
Mm.
you ever feel like when you're there and you're writing in first person as the character, like, uh okay, well, this is like super stressful. Like, I don't
Oh
know what I
yeah,
would do. Like,
oh yeah,
what would
yep,
I do? I don't
yep.
know.
There's a scene because when I write, I often write what's playing in my head. The
Right.
movie, as it were,
Yes.
that's playing in my head. So I'm quite visual that way. Um, and there's a scene in an abandoned mine that was really creepy. And there's a scene where Stella's at home alone in the kitchen with a knife, and that was really creepy. And there's, well, creepy, just intent. Not, it wasn't, it
like
wasn't
like
creepy.
you're tense, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. 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 And I'm reading it thinking, oh my gosh, is she really going to do this? Yes, I guess. Yes. Yes, she is. And off we
Yeah.
go. So it feels. I mean, I can always step away from the computer and go and go and do something else, of course. But it feels very, very intense in the moment when I'm writing it, and then when I'm editing it, and then reading it out loud. The intensity as I'm editing it, and hopefully making it better, it
Right.
increases. And if I'm still reading it, the 20, maybe not 20, but the 15th time, and it still makes me go, oh, then hopefully
Yeah.
I've got it right.
I would think so. Um, yeah, I think it's such a fascinating piece of like going in and figuring out how are you going to write this character through this really tense moment. But then as a writer, do you ever stop? Like, does it get like it gets really tense and then you're just like, okay, I stop, and then you kind of like jump out of it? Does that happen to you at all?
Not really.
Do you sit with the tension as you're writing? Like you just stay in that moment?
Yes, I do, because this is all the figment of my imagination anyway. It's me making this stuff up. I can freak myself out, but it's me, so it's not that freaky really in the end.
Yeah.
But I'll think about it, and it'll linger. But no, I don't really. I don't think I've ever. I'm trying to think if I ever. No, that's not true. I wrote a scene in The Neighbours. That was my first suspense novel, where somebody is dying or somebody's still strapped into a car that is burning, and the car's upside down, and he can't get out,
Yeah, that
and
sounds
somebody's there
terrible.
trying to help him, and he can't get to him. And I had to walk away from that. I remember walking away from that because it was so sad. It was just sad and
Yeah.
horrific. And I thought, okay, I need a break. So that one I did walk away from just for a bit, and
Yeah.
then came back and thought, okay, if that's the scene I'm writing, then that's the scene I'm writing, and I've got to go and write it.
Power through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that in writing scenes that are very emotionally intense or even physical action, like climax kind of scenes, like my whole body is tensed up as I'm
Oh
writing.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and then and then I'm like start writing, and then all of a sudden I'll just be like, okay, I gotta break the tension. But I think one of the skills that I think you clearly have, and something I would love to get to, is being able to sit in that tension and be able to live in it while you're writing, so that that tension you're physically feeling comes onto the page. Do you find that that's part of the process for you?
Definitely. I think so. I mean, when I'm writing scenes, and whether they're my rom-coms, and they're and it's cute and sweet, I'll go, oh, that's so cute,
Yeah.
and I hope that then comes through in the writing, because if I feel really tense about the scene, and then I go away and calm down, and then I come back, I'd worry that it would read flatter,
Yeah.
that it
Hmm.
would be missing, because that's what I'm feeling. If that feeling of tension, if I can harness that and put it on the page, then hopefully the reader will feel it as they read the story. Hopefully
Right.
it'll go from me to the page to them. That's the goal, isn't it? I mean, as
Right.
writers, we want people to feel stuff. Good, bad, scary, happy, whatever that might be, but something.
Right.
Something. I hope that when people read my stories, they feel something. It might be, I hate this book, and then they throw it across the room. Hopefully not too often. Hopefully it's more, oh, this is really gripping. I mean, that's the feedback as thriller writers that
Hmm.
we aim for, isn't it? That, oh, I couldn't put it
Yeah.
down. It was so gripping.
The ultimate compliment is I stayed up till
Yeah,
3 in the morning. That
yeah,
is the number one compliment. And
yes.
I actually have a friend on Bookstagram who posted something. She like was reading, I can't remember what book it is. It's a newer one. But she stayed up all night, and she was like posted. She's like, that's the sunrise. I didn't even realize this was that. And I was like, please tell the author that is the
Yes,
number one
yes,
best compliment you can get.
yes, definitely, definitely.
um, okay, so a couple more questions about your story. How many drafts did it take you to write A Killer Motive?
So, oh gosh. So the way I work is I plot my novels, I outline them, I outline heavily, I interview my characters, I'll build a map because I set it in Portland, in Maine.
Okay.
So I went really old school and went onto Google Maps and printed out on different, pieces of paper and then stuck them together literally with tape. And then I'd put, well, this is where Stella lives and this is where she works and this is how far it is. So I can really, and I put that on my pinboard. So I do all of that work beforehand. And then I'll write what I call my skeleton draft, which is really bare bones. It's really, there'll be some tension depending on the scenes, but mainly it's just getting the bare bones story out on the page.
Yes.
And then I'll go over it again and again and again and again and again. And each time is a little bit shorter because there are fewer and fewer edits, hopefully, and that's the plan anyway.
Yeah.
So I'd say from writing that first skeleton draft to sending what I call a first draft to my editor and my agent, I've probably read through it between 10 and a dozen times, I would say.
Wow.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
So, and that's before you send it out to
Yeah.
your editor, your fader, the
yeah.
people who see it.
Yes,
So,
I would never, ever, ever in a million years ever send that skeleton draft to my editor and agent. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, it's a skeleton, but there are bones missing, and maybe you've got hands sticking out of the head and
right.
in the wrong place, and it's just a puke draft, right?
Right.
Really is not. Even though I've outlined it and I've plotted it, the outline and the plot might not quite work, and I have to move things around. I might take the second to last chapter and move it to the very beginning of the book. I think I did that in the Revenge List. So it's just me figuring out the story, really, those first few drafts. And then it's polishing and editing and putting in the sparkle. And, it's things like, I think this was afterwards with my editor, though. I remember her asking me why in The Neighbours, Abby, one of the main characters, detested daffodils, because she has this aversion to daffodils, but there was no real reason why.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I know why. It's because the day her father left, there was a vase of daffodils on the kitchen table, and she associates daffodils with her dad leaving. So I went back and I thought, I know where I can feed this in. Page whatever it was, 100 and whatever. I'll go back and put in a little paragraph, and then hopefully it reads as if it was always there, but it wasn't. So those are the little sparkles, the little details that make the characters even more relatable and real, and the story gives it more depth, so those will come later. So about 10 to 12 probably, and then with my editor, another at least, well, there's structurals, could be 2, could be 3, and then there's line edits, copy edits, proofreads, and then the ARC, the advanced review or advanced reader copy, and then we read that again or read it again twice. So by the time all is said and done, I've probably read the book 15, 16 times.
Wow. Okay, you gotta really like the book you're writing, right?
Yeah,
like that's the whole idea. You gotta like the book you're writing.
Yeah. And can I please put that on my Goodreads stats?
Yeah, exactly. Hi, I read 16 books this year.
Just
it was the same one, but
and of course every round is faster and faster. So when I got recently, I think it was a couple of months ago, I got the final version of A Killer Motive after we'd done all of the edits. It was more of just a check, is this now everything? Is
kind
there
of that last
anything?
review?
Yeah, the very, very last one. So that I read it over 2 days. Whereas when I'm reading my first skeleton draft, it'll probably take me a month. And I won't remember what's at the beginning when I get to the end, because it's been forever.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. That is so real. What happens on page 10, you're like, oh, this character is blonde, maybe.
Yeah.
And then page 75, 200, like, I don't know what color hair she has.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah. But then because you edit it again and again and again and again, the last edits, and again, this is before I send it to my before it's allowed to be called the first draft. Those rounds, I might read it in 3 days, or probably over 3 days. I'll probably chunk it into 100 pages per day,
Right.
so I can really focus on it and read it properly. But it does get easier. Of course, that's the whole point, isn't it? That you smooth it out, and it gets easier and easier and smoother and better, hopefully.
So you said that you interview your characters. Can we talk a little bit more about how you because how do you make them feel fully fleshed out? You had that great example of the daffodils, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've had an experience where I was writing something that I was in a character's head, and then something came out and I was like, oh, well, that explains why this happened. No idea, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get your characters fully fleshed before you start writing, or at least like pretty well fleshed out before you start writing?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that they're fully fleshed before. They're fully fleshed when I'm done. I hope, when I'm done, when we've sent it off, or hopefully beforehand. But that's when I will obviously know them the best, because I've spent so much time with them. So initially what I do is I'll come up with the point of view characters and the main cast surrounding them. And I'll think about their journey. What led them to this point in time where the story starts? Who are they? What's their trajectory? Other than just how old they are and what they look like, what have they done, in their lives, and how did they come to be the person that they are when I write chapter 1? What makes them who they are? So I'll think about that. I'll create a backstory for them in bullet points. And then before I start writing, I'll put them through, not all of my characters, good Lord, that would take forever.
Yeah, that would be too much. But like your main ones, right?
The main ones, yeah. So definitely the protagonist, definitely the antagonist, and then a couple of people in the supporting cast. So I have this 3-page questionnaire, that's my interview, where it'll be questions, the bog standard ones, eye color, hair color, what they look like, physical descriptions. Right. And then it'll be things like, what did they study and where? Do they still use anything they studied, or did they veer off into something completely different? And it goes further and further into the psyche of the characters. So there'll be things like, have they ever seen a dead body? If so, what were the circumstances? Maybe it was a grandparent. Maybe they stumbled across a murder victim, and that might inform the story. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe it was a stranger who died on a park bench from a heart attack or something, just natural causes or something like that. Somebody they knew, somebody they didn't. So I'll think about that and how that informs them. Another question would be, do they believe in ghosts? I don't write ghost stories, but the point is, do they believe in ghosts? Are they a spiritual person? Are they that kind of thing? Do they believe in God? That kind of thing. So it does 2 things. It makes me really think about who they are, so that as I'm writing, and the vast majority of all of this does not feed into the book, of course, but it informs me about who they are.
Creating the character, how they're going to react. That's the most. That's the thing I have the biggest challenge with, is the dialogue and their reactions to each other.
Yes.
Like, what are they going to say? But they have to think about what would inform them to make them say what they're going to say.
Exactly.
And so that's just a very weird process.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I like the idea of doing the deeper interview, because you're right. That's the stuff that it does make a difference. Like, if, are they believe in God or not? What are they going to, are they going to react a certain way? Or are they going to react differently? And, it's just,
It's a really fascinating and fun process. I mean, sometimes it's a bit of a slog, because I think, oh no, I've got 5 questionnaires to do. Ugh. But on the other hand, it also makes sure that they don't all sound and think and act the same, because they have different upbringings. They didn't all study, I don't know, economics. They didn't all have, I don't know, they weren't all accountants. They have to be different. They have to come from different backgrounds, so that there's. And how does that also create tension between characters, whether they're friends or not? Doesn't matter, because with friends there's still tension sometimes. You don't always think the same or act the same.
Right.
So I do that a lot. Fascinating story I heard from Karen Hamilton, who wrote The Perfect Girlfriend. She goes a step further, I thought this
Okay.
was brilliant, and I've swore I'd always do it, and I haven't yet, but I really should. She would go and see, and the psychiatrist would know, but she would go to see a psychiatrist in character as
Oh
the
my gosh.
right.
That I bet is so mind-boggling because you have to think of the questions to ask yourself, but then somebody else is asking you the questions.
That's
Oh
right.
my gosh, that's
It's
brilliant.
brilliant. I thought it was brilliant, and she said that there were a couple of, because she often would write from the evil person's point of view, who
Yeah,
we would
I'm sure
consider
that was some
evil.
awkward
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. And she said there were a couple of times where I had to break character and say, you know, this isn't what I think, right? This isn't what I would do. I would never do these things. This is what she would do, you know. So I thought that was just fascinating, and just another step further to really understand. Because to your point, it's not me putting myself through my regular questionnaire, and I know what questions are coming. She
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
She had no
So
idea.
it's that whole thinking on your feet thing, which is what happens in real life,
Yeah,
which is what happens to our characters. We're
yeah.
asking them to think on their feet, but we're thinking about how they're going to think on their feet. And that is just like my brain just has a
That's
hard
a whole
time.
other
I
level.
love that
Yeah.
idea. Like, I think I might try to like see if I can find somebody to do that with me because that would
But
be really
the
cool.
thing is, though, I'd be really worried that the psychologist or psychiatrist would think that, oh yeah, she's got real issues though. She's talking about
Oh
killing
yeah.
people. Like, oh my god, this really, I promise, I'd be justifying myself all the time, saying this isn't me. This isn't
This
really
isn't
me.
me.
You know, but
But
knowing that I
but
made it
but
up.
Hannah, is it
Yeah,
really
exactly.
you a little bit though? Is it a little bit you?
I'd be a little bit worried. One of the questions that I loved, that I found, this kind of an amalgamation of different questionnaires and interviews and things that I found for characters online. And one of them is, um, the last four are, where is this character at the beginning of the book? Where are they at the end? You know, physically, emotionally, alive, dead, who knows? And
Yeah.
then the next two questions are, why are you interested, as in the writer? Why are you as a writer interested in this character? And why should the reader be?
Ooh,
I thought they
I
were
like
really
that
cool.
too.
Yeah, I thought they were great. So it's quite fun to do, and it makes me, as I'm preparing, with the outline, it really makes me think about the story more. And
Hmm.
it feels a bit like procrastination sometimes, you know, when
Yeah.
I do the map and I do the photo gallery and I do the interviews, but actually it's not. It feels like fun, and it is fun. It is fun to
It is
do,
fun.
but sometimes I think, oh, I'm just procrastinating because I don't want to go and write the story, because you know, filling 300 blank pages is hard work. But it is
Yes.
actually work, because it makes those 300 blank pages for me earlier, not earlier, easier, a little bit easier, uh,
Yeah.
to fill. Not that I'm saying that everybody should rush out and do photo galleries and character interviews and
Right.
outlines, because it doesn't work for everyone.
Hmm.
It just happens to work for me.
No, I think that that's fantastic. And I find it so fascinating, everyone's process, right? Because some people outline, some people they're gardeners, right? And so they're planting things as they go, and they're doing it by the seat of their pants. And then there's a mix of people, like there's some sort of mix. Like I believe, so a friend of mine, Kristen Bird, I believe, told me that Lisa Jewell will write like a little bit of what she's going to write next, like the next 3 chapters. She'll only outline like 3 chapters at a time.
Oh,
So that's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. So
Yes.
I think there's so many ways. And the important thing as a writer, you have to figure out what that is. And
Yes.
that is a process. And especially if you're an early writer. So I'm saying this to myself as like a newer writer, like it is a process. It takes time to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
what is going to work for you.
And it might
Because,
evolve too. You know,
and yeah, exactly.
I used to write outlines that were a few pages. Typically now they're 20. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Well,
I
because
don't.
you also know what you're looking for. If you've done this enough times, you know what you're
Yes.
looking for. You're gonna want to pull from like the things you're gonna. I need to know this sort of information.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're very first starting, you don't even know that you're gonna need that information. But it's about like being patient with yourself and
Exactly.
learning
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
as you
And not
go.
being married to an outline. I'm never married to my outlines, things, because when I outline it, you know, seems like a good idea at the time. But maybe as I'm
Yeah.
writing it, oh no, this we'll
Yeah.
shift it over a little bit, and it changes. And one idea I had for Only One Survives, I'd written the whole outline. I'd even sent it to my agent. I'd sent it to my editor. It had been approved, and I figured out that what I wanted to do with one of the characters was have her be convicted and then exonerated. And I spoke to Hank about it, actually, Hank Philby Ryan, and because her husband's a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer. And I said, "This is possible, right?" And she said, "Jonathan says not so much. It would take forever to have the sentence overturned. It could take years." And I thought, "Well, that doesn't work."
That's not going to
So
help in this
no,
situation.
no. So I emailed my agent and my editor, said, "Can't do that, but I've had another idea, and I think we could do this and this and this." And they said, "Oh yeah, that'll work." So I could have maybe tried to shoehorn that plot
Hmm.
piece in, but no, shoehorning
Yeah.
is then evident when people read it. They go, "No, this did."
It doesn't really fit there. I think that goes to the whole kill your darlings, right?
Yes.
So like I'm in the middle of finishing this revision that will be like kind of my last full revision before I do start doing polishing. And so what I realized too, as I was going through it yesterday, I'm weaving things together, a draft plus I'm making, edits. So, and I use different colors with my new edit so I can see kind of exactly how I'm weaving it together. Anyway, but the thing is that I was like, oh, I love this paragraph. I love this paragraph. It's so great. I was like, and I have to move it away because it doesn't work anymore. It's like the saddest thing.
Yes, yes. I remember a scene in The Neighbors where I had one of the main characters, Nate, and his grandfather talking about the grandfather's war medals. I think it was really cute. It was really sweet. And my editor said, um, "It's lovely and it's very emotional, but it doesn't do anything because it tells us that Nate is a really good guy and a nice man, a kind man, and gentle and generous. But we already know all that. So it's got to go." So I did the old, Control A and select and Control X, and then I popped it in a different Word document that I saved. And I thought, I'm just going to keep that. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe I can use it for something else. And
it could
actually,
be a
I think
short
I
story.
did. Not that scene, but there was another scene with that same grandfather and the grandmother talking about how they met. And I think I went and used a snippet of that in one of my rom-coms, like, I don't know, 8 years later.
Oh, that's so
So I
amazing.
still I was able
I
to
think,
take
and
it.
that's the thing. It's never any wasted words, right? You're just
Right.
never
Yeah.
wasting words. It
Yeah.
is like, it's definitely, you have to go through, I really believe, and this has been a hard lesson, you have to go through all the words that are not going to make it into the book to find the ones that are. And it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
sometimes that's a lot.
Yeah, and it's a skill because you also, what one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is the pacing.
Mhm.
How do I? Because my books sometimes have been called more of a slow burn, and I'm trying to up the ante a little bit more at the
Mhm.
at the beginning. I do like slow burn books. That's not a
Yeah.
thrillers. That's not a problem for me, but I appreciate that not everybody does. So I am trying to cut things out and or distribute them a little bit more. But my editors are really great at that. With a killer motive,
That's so
we
good.
took a few snippets and sprinkled them. We took some stuff out and we took some things. We removed it, but then sprinkled it around instead of having it in one block. And it does make a difference. So
Mhm.
that's something that you learn, I think. Working now on book 12, and I know what I'm looking for, but I doesn't mean I can do it. It means that
Yeah.
also I have great editors who will help me out and say no. And also, when you've read a manuscript 10 times before it goes to somebody else, you're almost too close. You can't see the
Yeah,
flaws
you can't
anymore.
see it anymore.
No, and
Mm-mm.
that's what you need. You want. It's lovely to have people tell me how brilliant my writing is and how much they love it, and that's great, and I need that too. but I need people who will crack the whip, and my editor is there to make it better. That's the whole point
Yeah.
of having an editor. It's to make what you've done, to elevate it, to make it a better experience for the reader.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes more people to make a book than just the writer. The writer comes up with the story and it is their story, but unless you've got like lots of time, like years in between your things, like where you forget what you wrote, you really have to have somebody else that's going to come in.
Oh
Plus
yeah.
everyone has a different lens, right? So you've got
Yes.
the opposite of different things. Where an example, I sent a couple of chapters to a friend of mine. My book is set in the desert, which I live in Phoenix, and so it's set here. And I had like named some trees, like mesquite trees, palo verde trees, things like that. And she was like, I have no idea what those look like. And I was like, okay, well, she was
Oh,
in New York. And I was fair enough. Okay,
fair
now I know
point.
that I need to work on
Yeah,
changing that, because and that you don't know those things because of your own lens, right? Until
that's
you have
right.
somebody
Yeah,
else's.
yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love the part where they'll say, well, why is this? You know, as we're talking about earlier, why does she hate daffodils? I don't know. And the answer, she just does, because
Yeah.
she just does. That doesn't cut it. You got to
No, no, it
just
doesn't.
dig a little deeper.
You got to do more work. And sometimes
Yes.
it's nice to have somebody else tell you, no, you need to do a little more work.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And generally I've had this feeling, the experience where I think, well, I'm not quite sure about that, but it'll be okay. And then my editor will put a finger exactly on that and go, what was this about? Oh yeah, I've got to fix that. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's it. I work with a book coach right now, and she's like telling, I'm not allowed to go back again. I'm not allowed to go back again. So I'm just creating like a big list of like, oh, I gotta do that. That's gotta change. That's gotta change. But yeah, because like, or I'm missing this, or there's something that I realize now, 3/4 into the book that was important. Something small happened earlier.
Yes.
Those kind of things.
Yes.
It's yeah. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I'm wondering if you could tell me why you decided to write The Dark and Twisted. You started with rom-coms. Why thrillers? Why suspense? What drew you here?
It's a bit of a sad origin story, really. So I always read suspense. Well, not always, but I read a lot of thrillers and suspense in my teenage years. Growing up in Switzerland, we didn't have access to a lot of books in English. So whenever my mom and dad, well, predominantly my mom will go back to the UK to visit family, she'd bring back a stack of books, and she was my book handler, and she'd always make recommendations, and she read a lot of thrillers, and consequently so did I. And then in my early 20s, I lost my best friend. He was murdered in very horrific and tragic and awful circumstances. And I didn't read thrillers forever. I read
Yeah.
romantic comedies, happy stuff. I just couldn't bear to read something where other people killed other people.
Right.
And so fast forward 20 years, about 20 years, I had written time after time, and that was because an idea had popped into my head, and it was a romance, and I just went with it and ran with it. And I was working on my second novel, which was The Neighbours, and it felt darker. I knew this was not going to be a romance. I knew for sure it wasn't going to be a rom-com, because not everything would work out for everybody in the end. I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but it was not a romance or a rom-com. There are romantic elements in it, but it
Right.
was certainly not going to be the traditional happy ending romance.
Right.
And I was at the library and waiting for one of my kids, and I saw Jennifer Hillier's book Creep. And the
Okay.
cover is it's grey, these big red shiny letters, Creep, and then a pair of handcuffs dangling down. I thought, well, what's that? So I picked it up and I read the back. I thought, okay. I sat down, opened it up, and started reading the first chapter, and I was hooked. Totally,
Yeah.
and I had not met Jenny at this point. I'd
Yeah.
never met her. Didn't know her at all. And I read Creep. I read Freak. I read The Butcher. Very quick succession. Got them all. And I remember thinking, this is what I want to write. This is what I used to read. This is what I want to write now. I'm ready. I'm ready
Ready.
to go over to suspense, and it almost gave me, well, a shove, almost the not permission's too strong of a word, but it made me realize that I was okay going over to the dark side of suspense. And I think because of what happened to my friend, that's probably why also I wanted to write about messed up families and messed up stuff happening, because it happened to me. I mean, it happened to him, but it happened
But
by
it still
association.
affects you. It's still,
It affected me
around you.
deeply.
Yeah.
And to this day. So that was how I ended up in suspense. So, and that's also earlier on when I said I'm less interested in the how and far more interested in the why.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that stems from. It's the
That makes
why
sense.
do seemingly normal, well-adjusted, balanced people do these awful things, and are
Yeah.
we all capable of doing it? Are we all,
Yeah.
if we're pushed far enough? Is
Well, it's
everybody?
almost like what's the line? What's it going to take to be
Yeah,
pushed far enough, and seeing these characters getting to that line,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
it's and
safely,
yeah,
because it's
safely.
not
Like,
real.
and that's kind of what I was like. It's internally, you're kind of playing with this idea of how far would I push? Like the dangerous things that, I will never be, knock on wood, I will never be one of those like detective people, like these protagonists. But I love the idea of like, what would it be like,
Yes,
getting
yes.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how would I? And you've got the revenge list behind you, and the revenge list. Frankie, she's the one who ends up in anger management, because she's got unresolved issues, and she has
Mm-hmm.
anger issues. She's not angry for 350 pages. I want to make that perfectly clear. But she was my little firecracker, and she would say stuff and do things. She'd have these quips that I might think of, 3 days after whatever happened has happened. I go, I should have said. And she's very quick, and she says things, because obviously I had time to think about what she might say in these situations.
Yeah.
So it might take me 3 days to come up with it, but it takes her 3 seconds. And that's really fun too, that exploration of these people who aren't real, obviously, but could be if they walked in. It might not be that abnormal for us that they walk in. They go, oh yeah,
Right.
it would be
Yeah.
weird because they're not real, but it wouldn't be weird because we know them. It's kind of that very
Yeah.
weird
Well,
author
the
thing.
idea, if we've done our jobs right, they are a fully fleshed person. So it
Yes,
could, like, in your mind, they could walk into a
yes,
room and be
yes.
a regular person.
Exactly. And it's funny when people say, well, do you base your characters on yourself? And I said, well, no, because, or people no, because it's my job to make stuff up. And no, because for me, the fun is, yeah, there might be a sprinkling of something,
Yeah.
might like rhubarb pie,
Yeah.
whatever. Love rhubarb pie, it's the best. But the whole point for me is to explore these different personalities, and and have them be very different from me, and do things that are completely different, good, bad, daring,
Right.
not, whatever it might be. And if I base them all on me, my gosh, that would, 12 books in, that'd be, whoa.
Yeah. Well, then you would have gone through a lot of trauma. A
Yes,
lot of trauma.
a lot. Yes, that is true.
um okay, so one of the other things that I know that you do outside of writing is you and Hank Phillippe Ryan host a show called First Chapter Fun, right?
That's right.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I love that show, by the way.
Sure. So we will be back in summer of 2025. We had to put it on hold for a little bit. But First Chapter Fun essentially is a show where Hank or I would read the first chapter of a different book, not ours unless it was release week, and then the other one would read, we'd read for each other. So we would do that. So we read the first chapter of a different book. Or the first 5 pages. It might not be the whole first chapter, or sometimes it's 2 chapters if the chapters are very, very short, but about 5 pages. To introduce the book to the First Chapter Fun community, to the funsters, as we call them, and to introduce the authors. So it could be authors that you already know, it could be authors, could be a debut, it could be their 15th book or their 25th or whatever it might be. And all kinds of different books. So although we didn't read, we don't read non-fiction, and we don't read erotica. Nothing against erotica at all.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure I
I
want
feel
to
like that would not be a
read
fun
sex scenes
like, I
out
don't want
loud.
to,
Yeah, to other people. No,
yeah, I don't think I'd read
that's
that.
something. Yeah, we do. We could do. Yeah, that would just make me feel. I'd probably blush like a 10-year-old. That'd be awful. Um, but it's been really, really fun, and I think we've recorded it's over 400 episodes for sure.
Wow.
Of different books, and it started during COVID. It started as a COVID thing, kind of a reaction to, oh my gosh, the whole world is on fire, and how can I distract myself from all this terrible news? And I have a book coming out, and friends have books coming out, and how can we support each other and do stuff? And it literally started the next day after I floated this what felt like a bit of a silly idea on Messenger with a group chat, and so many authors, I thought maybe, half a dozen might say, oh yeah, sure, you can read the first chapter of my book. But it turned into something far bigger that lasted for far longer than I ever imagined.
I mean, it's great. I love it because I've definitely been introduced to new authors from that show. And then also it's on Instagram and on Facebook, and there are giveaways every time. And so when it comes back, I definitely recommend people check it out. But I wanted to ask you, so you've had 400 episodes of First Chapter Fun. You probably know a little bit about a first chapter. And I was just curious, what is a tidbit or something that you see that kind of stands out to you as far as, okay, this is a compelling chapter versus like this is a soft entry versus something that's like really gripping?
What stands out to me is that in a first chapter, for me, that makes me want to go to chapter 2 is caring about the character in one way or another. So it could be that the story is written from the villain's point of view, and I'm already thinking, oh, are they going to catch him? Are they going to get their comeuppance? I need to know. So it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that I like the person, or I just want to know what's going to happen to them. I mean, it could be. I remember one first chapter that we read where a woman wakes up and she's handcuffed. This was a thriller, of course. She was handcuffed in a basement, and we don't know who she is, and we don't know why, and we don't know what's going to happen to her. We don't even know her name, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm already thinking, oh my gosh, is she going to get out of this? And who put her there and why?
Yeah.
But what I also learned, and this wasn't through First Chapter Fun, this was actually through writing the first rom-com as Holly Cassidy, is that a first chapter in a thriller and a first chapter in a rom-com don't have the same elements. So
they don't?
No.
Okay.
No. So in a thriller, I'll take The Revenge List as an example, opens up, car's going off a cliff, a woman's in the car, she's the passenger, and the guy, just before they went off this cliff, had told her that they were going to die. And she closes her eyes and she accepts that he was right. And it's 2 pages. That's it. So you don't know who she is. You don't know why she's in the car. You don't know who the driver is, but something terrible is about to happen. And then chapter 2 starts 15 days earlier. So it's a flash forward.
Right.
So then the whole thing is, when am I going to get to the car going off the cliff, and why? What
right.
Is going
that's
on
the
here?
That's like the grip. Like that's the promise.
Yeah.
At that point, that you're promising them. We're gonna get there.
That's right.
Go through the ride.
That's right. That's exactly right. But you have very limited information about the character. Whereas when I wrote my first romantic comedy, the first chapter ended up being almost 3,000 words, which to me felt really, really long.
But that feels long to me too, just because I think usually about 1,200, 1,500 for your first chapter, like 10 pages.
Exactly. And what was really interesting with the editor, she said, well, we know this is a Christmas wager. We know Bella a little bit, but tell us more. Does she like Christmas? And it doesn't have to be a whole explanation, but just hints. But every hint, every couple of sentences adds more words.
Right.
And I remember saying to her, you want all that in the first chapter? You want to know the answer to all of these questions in chapter 1?
Yeah.
And she said yes, because in a rom-com, people have to connect with the protagonist, and they want to connect with her. They want to understand her before they move on to chapter 2. And I thought that is so interesting, because in
Yeah.
the thriller, it's just, oh my gosh, what is the situation, and are they going to get out of it, and what is going on, and what is happening?
We're actually trained to hide information. Like,
Yes,
that's the thing. You're
yes,
hiding all of that.
you're so smart. It's exactly that. Yeah, exactly. And I hadn't actually thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, you withhold, you hide, you
Yeah.
duck and dive and weave, and
Mhm. You
you
give just a
know,
little.
yeah, not too much, but you can't withhold too much, because then it's frustrating, and you think, well,
Mhm.
why is the author not giving me this information? It's,
Right.
you've hinted at it 5 times now. Come on, give me something,
Right.
So that was really interesting, because even though we've read rom-coms um, and romances on First Chapter Fun, I wouldn't have been able to put my finger on what was, why it was different. But that's what it was. It's really make me hooked on this character and on their journey, make me care in a different way,
Yeah.
by giving more information about their love life, about their situation, so that was
Yeah.
quite fascinating.
That is really fascinating because, yeah, you know what? You're totally right. And I just like, I can imagine you feeling like, wait, is that an info dump? You want an info dump at the beginning?
Yes,
Because we
that's
don't, we
exactly.
try very hard not to do that.
That's right. I think I said to her, but isn't this going to be like an info dump? And she said, no, because you're just going to give little hints. But you have to give us more. You have, by the end of chapter 1, readers have to be invested in Bella's emotional, that was it, in Bella's emotional journey.
Right.
Where is she
That's interesting.
emotionally? What is going on with her? How does she feel about the breakup? I'm thinking, wait, what? Isn't that like chapter 5? It was eye
No,
opening.
that's
Really
amazing.
was. Yeah.
Well, and this is what I find so fascinating because every genre does have their own set of rules and their own set of like, and they're not, fast and hard rules,
Yeah.
but they are, general guidelines that readers expect. And yeah, I would have never thought that. And now you're
Mhm.
so like, now I'm thinking about books I've read. Yeah, you're totally right.
That's
Like
it's
right
like, yeah,
away, you're
solid, right? You just see it in a different light, and that means that if you want to go and write romance, you go, oh yeah, okay, so not an info dump, but more information. If it's thriller, it's probably going to be quite sparse at the
hmm
beginning. Not
yeah,
this big. Oh, this is the person, and there's a lot more setup. I found
right.
in romance and rom com than there is in thrillers. In thrillers, you almost don't want that setup. You want
Yeah,
something
you
really
just want to
short and
get
fresh.
right into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, that has been super fascinating. I thank you so much for that. That was like a great epiphany of just knowing like that's like really that's what the difference is. And it's good because eventually I would love to write different genres. I
Mhm.
mean, mystery thrillers is like this is where I'm my home, but I would love to be able to explore different genres. So that's such a
Mhm.
fascinating
There you
thing.
go. Yeah, just read a lot in that genre, and then read differently. Read
Yes.
from a, oh, how did they, not just for enjoyment and entertainment, but how did they do that? How did
Yeah.
they
Well, I
construct the
think
story?
I even do that with thrillers too. I have a whole shelf down here of specific books that I'm like, they did something really specific in it that I was like, how did they do that? Unsub by Megan Gardner, for example. She is this very, in the action scenes, they're just very staccato.
Mm,
And it's like all within the same sentence. And Thomas Harris did the exact same thing in Silence of the Lambs during their action scenes. And I was
interesting.
like, I happened to read them back to back, so that's how I noticed it. But it's so interesting to go back to looking at the work in a different, in an analytical lens.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. If
yeah,
anyone out there loves great dialogue and great stories, then I always is trying to finesse dialogue. David Nichols, who wrote One Day, which was turned recently into a Netflix series, was a movie with Anne Hathaway as well. He writes. I mean, they're they're not romance, but they're love stories. They're fantastic general. I guess they'd probably be shelved
right.
as general fiction, I guess. Um, his dialogue is incredible, and he also writes for film and TV, which I'm sure they go
Helps
hand
a
in
lot.
hand.
Yeah.
And his dialogue is just amazing. I read one of his first books in the UK. It's called Starter for 10. I can't remember what it's called here. And for probably 2 pages, he did not have a single dialogue tag, but I knew exactly who was talking.
Yeah.
It was. He's amazing, and he's a great writer, and he's a
What'd you say
lovely
his
guy.
name was again? I'm sorry.
David Nichols,
David.
Nicholl.
Well,
Yes,
that answers the question I was going to ask, which is, do you have a recommendation of a book or a craft book or
yes.
something?
Oh, definitely. So David
Yeah.
Nichols, his last one is called "You Are Here." And it was one of those books where I started reading more slowly the closer I got to the end, because I didn't want to finish it.
Because
I
you're
just wanted to
savoring it.
stay
Oh,
in the
those are
characters.
so amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved it. Not a thriller at all.
Yeah. Well, in thrillers, I don't really want to savor it. I want
Yeah,
I
you
want to
want
get
to
to
get
the
to the
end. I
end.
need
Yeah,
the
you want to
answer.
know. You want to know whether you were right, or whether
Mostly that's it. I mostly want to
yeah,
know, did the author trick me, or
yeah,
did I catch their
yeah,
game?
yeah.
Okay, so I have 10 questions I'm asking all of our authors that have come on here. And so it'll be a
Okay.
little bit rapid fire.
All right.
We'll go through those. So,
Okay, I'm ready.
what is on your desk?
Glass of water and a jug of water and my
It's
phone.
very important. Hydration
Yeah.
is needed.
Yes, it is. Yes.
What ritual, if any, do you have before or after you write?
I tidy my desk before and after. I find it very tricky to write with an untidy desk. It makes me, and it's procrastinating. So
Anything. Writers will find anything to do other than write.
yeah, sometimes.
So if you're writing multi-POV or multiple timeline, do you write straight through linearly like a reader would read, or do you write the characters' sections and then put them back into place?
I have done both, but I would say for A Killer Motive and for Only One Survives, my 2 most recent ones, I wrote I wrote the killer's point of view chapters in linear fashion and inserted them, and I did the same for the non-linear timeline chapters for Only One Survives. And and I think with The Neighbors I tried, because it's non-linear, I tried to write it non-linear, and I gave up and then wrote most of it in linear, because and then shuffled, because it got too complicated. Yeah.
So that's how it's so interesting. Almost everybody says that they write it like people read it, and I have a very hard time doing that. I'm finding it much easier to.
The beautiful thing is that a book does not need to be written in the order that it is read.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
nobody will know.
exactly.
And I love that. That was revolutionary to me when somebody said that to me. They said, "You realize you don't have to write it the way it's read?" I thought, "What? Wait, I don't? No. You can write the last chapter first if you so please. You can do whatever you want." Yeah, that was revolutionary.
Yeah. I think about Jennifer Hillier a lot, because she just says, like, I remember her saying she just writes all of these scenes and then tries to figure out a book after that.
I know.
And so I'm like, okay, well, if it works, it works. Like,
and she's awesome. I love her. She's amazing. I'm excited for her next one. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the most bullshit piece of advice you've heard?
Write what you know.
Okay. Perfect.
I do
what
not.
Is the...
No, I don't admit that. No. Because half the fun is going to figure out stuff you don't know. It's called research. But I'll put a caveat on that. I will say that, if you are writing from somebody else's perspective that is not your experience, whether it's gender, or whether it's nationality or background or ethnic background or whatever it is, be very careful.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Very careful. I don't think that's something that I would do. I mean, I have written from a guy's point of view, so that yes, but other than that, I think that's you've got to be so.
But outside of that,
so careful.
Don't write what you know. You should be learning. And like I had this conversation recently, like the idea that because you're going to do research, and the more you learn as an author, the better your characters are all going to be. Like it's
Yes.
just over
Yeah.
time, because you're gonna have enough information to use from one book to the next to the,
Yeah.
like it's just, and
Yeah.
it's more fun. We need to
Yeah.
broaden our horizons.
But I mean, otherwise, when people say write what you know, well, what about people who are writing about World War II but who weren't there?
Yeah.
I never killed anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what
So I don't know what
makes
that's
me
like.
giggle. If people say write what you know, what you mean, like murder? Hmm, You know.
So
So I think that's with certain caveats, I think that's bad advice because it limits what you can write.
Yep. I agree. What is the best piece of advice you've heard?
That if I can't figure out the chapter or scene that I'm working on and it's just not working, write something else. Skip ahead.
Yeah.
Go and write the end. Go and write the middle. Go and write something. Go and write a scene that you have already imagined and thought of, and that it might not make the cut in the end, but it will probably help unblock whatever is blocking you for the scene that you're working on. And also the non-linear thing that a book doesn't have to be written in the order that it's read.
Right. Awesome. What is the darkest idea you've had that has scared you about yourself?
The one I'm working on now, which I swore I would never write.
Okay. Ooh, well, I'm very excited to see what that's going to
And
happen there.
it's too early to say more about it, but it's something
Totally
I
fine.
swore I would never, ever, 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 ever write about. And now I am.
Now you are. Sometimes you got to go there.
Yeah.
So what part of the process is your favorite?
Two of them. One is the stage I'm at now, where I'm figuring out the story and I'm outlining, and anything is possible. And it seems that it's going to be so easy because this is going to be the best thing I've ever written and the easiest thing I've ever written. And it's all rainbows and unicorns before the real world sets in again. It's hard. So that I love because everything's open, everything's possible. There's all kinds of ideas coming, and hopefully, and this and that, and I can hear my characters talking already in my head, and it just feels it's exciting. It's cool.
It is. That's a very cool feel. Like when you're in it and you're like the story is coming alive in your head, and because you're like, even for outlining or whatever, like that is just such a cool thing.
Yes. And then there's the bit where there's 300 pages to fill. Yeah. And then,
well, I was going to ask, what's your least favorite part of the process? Is it filling 300 pages?
I think, because
it's mine.
So it goes through this. This feels not magical, but this feels exciting and cool and new and different. And then I'm writing it. The skeleton draft I find is the hardest. Mm-hmm. It's because I've thought about the story so much, I've plotted it so much. Why aren't words already on the page? But you've got to fill pages to be able to edit them. Yeah. And then that's probably my least favorite. And then I get back to the magical part again as I've gone through all of these edits, and then probably the last time where I'm reading it before I send it to my agent and editor, where I think this is something. This is working, and I'm adding the little sparkle and the glitter and the little twinkle in the eye and stuff, and it's actually working. It feels like a book. And then the structural edits letter comes in, and
then you're like, and everything is ruined.
But tear it all apart. What do you mean it's not perfect? No, because it never will be, will it? And then I'll go through this is hard again, but then it gets easier again, and then I'll think my editor was 100% right. This is way better than I could have made it on my own.
So many authors I've heard have said that. Oh, they're right. I hate it when they're right, but they're right.
Oh no! And you know what? The thing is, though, right? When you look at the whole editing process, everyone has the same goal. It's to make the book the best book it can possibly be. And once you realize that you're all on the same team.
Yeah.
Everyone has the same goal.
There's no reason to be precious.
No,
there's not to be precious about everything.
No.
I think especially if you're going to get into trad publishing, you have got to be able to take feedback and be able to discern what feedback you want to take. Yes. And that's a skill all of it in and of its own.
Yeah. So, I've had conversations with editors. I've had multiple editors where I said, oh gosh, why didn't I think of that? It's so clear. That's so obvious. I feel like a bit of a numpty for not having thought of that myself. You're brilliant and you're right. And absolutely. And of course I'm going to do that. And I've had other elements of the conversation where I've said, you know what, I hear what you're saying, and I could do that. But if I do that, then it's going to mess up this and this and this and this. How do we
Yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah.
And either it's then, oh, shoot, yeah, of course, let's not, okay, backtrack, let's not do that.
Hmm.
Or it's, well, I think it's still worth doing but if you, I realize if we pull on this thread, then it undoes some other stuff, but it will undo other stuff, but
Yeah.
it'll be better. The book will be better for it.
Hmm.
So I'd say I probably incorporate 80 to 90% of what they suggest, I would think.
Yeah.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. They
It's
edit
what they
books.
do. That
Yeah,
their whole job,
and they're
like they are
brilliant.
just professionals trained to
Yeah.
figure out, like to look at things from a 30,000 foot level that
Yes.
you as the author cannot, you just can't see because you're in it. You're just in it. Sometimes you just like, you can write a chapter 5 times and then you just lose, like, I don't even know what this chapter is anymore.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. What was
Yes.
I doing? This doesn't even be here. I have no idea. All right. Last question is, what is your old school favorite mystery or thriller?
Oh my goodness me. My old school. How old are we talking?
So I'll tell you mine are Nothing Lasts Forever by Sidney Sheldon and Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell. So those are 90s books. So like
Wow.
what I read growing up, like I read those, Catherine Coulter, all of that stuff. Those are like
Yeah.
my jam.
I think it would probably be The Talented Mr. Ripley,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a Jonathan Kellerman one that I really liked, because I really liked his, I think it was Alex Cross and Milo. It was the detective and psychologist. He was a child psychologist. So I
Mm.
used to read those. They were ones that my mum would have given to me. And of course, being a child of the well, born in the 70s, but 80s would have been my decade, so to speak. It was my mum giving me flowers in the attic when I was 12, I think.
I mean,
A rite
that
of
is
passage.
the classic. If you read Flowers in the Attic, then you are you are into true crime or you are into thrillers or
Yep.
like that was a very imprinting
Yes.
story.
Yes, it was. And I read them all, and I was young, and it was totally fine. Totally
Yeah.
fine. Probably I'd have to throw in some Stephen King in there as well.
Yeah.
Carrie and Cujo. Oh, ooh,
So
scary
creepy.
stuff.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me today, Hannah. And so tell people where they can find you and about your new book is coming out on September
Ninth.
9th. Okay.
9th, September 9th. Yep, that's A Killer Motive. I can be found at hannahmarymckinnon.com and on social media, Hannah Mary McKinnon. Now, there is another Hannah McKinnon author who is wonderful and lovely and brilliant, and her books are gorgeous. She writes these family-centric dramas, and they're just absolutely wonderful. She is American, which obviously with the accent I am not. She is blonde, which I'm not. So dark hair, dark books. You've got to have the Mary in there.
That is a very great way
Yeah.
to remember.
Yeah. But read Hannah's work too. Hannah, she's brilliant. She's a lovely, lovely person, and her writing is gorgeous.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, listeners. You can find me at Sabrina Thatcher, author on Instagram. And if you want any information about my book coaching services, you can visit crimeandquill.com. Until next time, stay sharp and right twisted. Bye.
Thanks for having me.